She made a grilled cheese sandwich for a tired stranger, then lost her job the next morning. With her sick daughter depending on her and no money left for surgery, Maya Johnson's world collapsed. But what if that stranger was Elon Musk? And what happened next? You won't believe how one simple act of kindness changed everything. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The sun hadn't yet touched the rooftops of Austin when Maya Johnson pushed open the smudged glass doors of the Silicon Diner. The air inside still carried traces of bleach and lemon oil from the overnight cleaning crew, but to Maya, it smelled like exhaustion and quiet desperation. Her black work shoes, scuffed at the toes and worn at the heels, squeaked faintly against the freshly mopped floor as she made her way to the back locker room, moving with the slow precision of someone who no longer had the luxury of rest. "Morning, Miss Maya," called Jerome, the elderly janitor, his broom pausing mid-sweep as he flashed her a familiar, gap-toothed smile. "Morning, Jerome," Maya managed, forcing her lips upward though her eyes gave her fatigue away. "Paperwork's piling up again." What she didn't say, what she never said, was that she'd already been up since 4 a.m., stocking shelves at the grocery store across town, that she'd barely had time to scarf down a granola bar before jogging to the bus stop, that every muscle in her back throbbed from lifting boxes, and her right ankle still ached from last week's spill. But Maya didn't complain. She couldn't afford to, not with everything riding on her shoulders. Inside her locker, a neatly pressed black uniform and crisp white apron awaited her like armor. Taped to the inside of the door was a crayon drawing, a pair of stick figures holding hands beneath a rainbow, the sun beaming in the corner. Zoe's name was signed at the bottom in purple marker, the letters shaky but proud. Maya's hand lingered on it for a moment, tracing the rainbow with her fingertips. 8 years old, too young to carry words like diagnosis and pre-option consultations in her vocabulary, too brave to ever complain. Zoe had been born with a rare congenital heart condition, and the latest tests revealed she needed a surgery soon. The cost? $75,000. Even with health insurance, the out-of-pocket costs for the operation and recovery would drown any average family, and Maya, raising Zoe alone with no support and 2 jobs, was anything but average. She'd already sold her car, moved into a cramped 1-bedroom apartment, bartered away every spare possession of value, and still, she was barely halfway there. Her reflection stared back at her from the small mirror magnetized to her locker door. Tired brown eyes, hollow cheeks, and dark circles, despite the careful makeup. Her thick black hair was pulled back in a strict bun, not a single curl out of place. At a diner like this, nestled in the heart of Austin's booming tech corridor, appearance mattered almost as much as customer service. Tech CEOs and startup founders expected a certain polish with their avocado toast. As she tied her apron, the door burst open behind her. "Maya!" Sarah, a fellow server and single mom herself, swept in like a hurricane. "Did you hear? Another round of layoffs at Tech World. We're going to be swimming in farewell lunches today." Maya's heart sank a little. Farewell lunches meant tables full of nervous smiles, desperate splurges, and clients clinging to overpriced comfort food like it could change their fate. She hated those days. They reminded her too much of her own situation, of how close she was to the edge. The morning rush began at exactly 7:30, like a tidal wave cresting over a too small beach. Maya flowed through the chaos with practiced grace, balancing trays, remembering orders by heart, refilling coffee before customers even asked. She knew their allergies, their favorite booths, which ones liked extra whipped cream, and which ones preferred soy milk in their lattes. Her regulars adored her, but her focus wasn't on praise, it was on the tips. Each dollar, a building block toward the mountain of medical debt looming over her. At 10:05 a.m., she caught a moment's breath and leaned against the prep counter, glancing at her phone. A missed call from the hospital's billing department. Again. Her stomach clenched. She pressed the phone to her chest, grounding herself. Zoe was depending on her, and she wasn't going to let her down. Outside, the late morning sun glinted off glass towers filled with people who spoke in code and funding rounds. People who could drop 75 grand on a whim. Maya served them eggs and smiled while hiding the earthquake in her chest. She had learned how to carry the world on her back. Quietly, invisibly. But tomorrow, a stranger in a black t-shirt would walk through those very same doors, and with him, he would unknowingly bring the storm that would turn Maya's world upside down. And it would all begin with a grilled cheese sandwich. The night shift at the Silicon Diner was a different world entirely. Gone was the buzz of tech executives making deals over espresso shots. In its place lingered a quiet hum. Laptops clicking, coffee cooling in forgotten mugs, and exhausted souls searching for something more than just food. Maya Johnson's muscles ached from her double shift at the grocery store earlier that morning, but her spirit hadn't broken, not yet. She couldn't afford for it to. She had promised Zoe they'd work on her science project tomorrow. Rock pockets and space, Zoe had said with shining eyes. Maya had smiled, nodding even though she knew it meant sacrificing another night's rest. But promises to Zoe weren't like promises to the world. They were sacred. It was nearing 10 p.m. when the diner bell chimed again, and in walked a man who looked like he carried the weight of a galaxy on his shoulders. He wore a plain black t-shirt, faded jeans, and a fatigue that seemed deeper than physical. His hair was disheveled like he'd been dragging his hands through it all day, and his eyes, shadowed and intense, looked like they'd forgotten how to blink. He didn't walk in like a man looking for food. He walked in like someone barely holding it together. "Table for one," he said quietly, his voice low and strange, almost mechanical. Trevor, the night host, barely glanced up from his phone. "Sit wherever," he mumbled, already scrolling again. Maya watched the man move to a booth tucked far in the back, away from the windows, away from the world. Something about him tugged at her. Something in the way he slouched forward, elbows on the table like he needed it to hold him up. She grabbed a menu and approached, her steps quiet. "Rough day?" she asked gently, setting the menu down in front of him. He blinked, as if waking from a trance, and looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. "You could say that. Trying to solve impossible problems with impossible deadlines." Maya nodded slowly. "Sounds like you could use comfort food. The kitchen's about to close, but if you trust me, I'll make you something that helps." There was a pause, a beat. Then he gave the smallest nod. "Sure. Why not?" Back in the kitchen, Roberto was already cleaning, wiping down the counters with clockwork precision. "Maya, kitchen's closing. Don't get me in trouble with Phillips again." "On last order. I'll help you clean," she promised. It's my mom's grilled cheese," she added, her secret weapon. Roberto groaned but softened. "Fine, but make it fast." She worked quickly, her hands instinctive, guided by memory. She layered 3 cheeses, Cheshire, mozzarella, and Gouda, added crisp bacon, and brushed the bread with honey butter, the way her mother used to. While it grilled, she brewed a fresh pot of peppermint tea and grabbed the ripest banana from the basket. When she set the plate in front of the man, he raised an eyebrow. "I didn't order this." "Trust me," Maya said with a small smile. "My mom used to make this for me when I felt like the world was ending. The banana's for potassium. You look like you haven't eaten properly in days." He took a bite, and for a moment something softened in his face. His shoulders eased, his eyes closed briefly, and when he opened them, a ghost of a smile touched his lips. "This is unexpected. In a good way, I hope?" "The honey butter," he murmured, almost to himself. "It makes everything better." She turned to check on her other tables, but before she could walk away, he spoke again, more hesitantly this time. Would you sit with me? Just for a moment? If you're not too busy?" Maya paused. The diner was nearly empty now, the tasks were mostly done, and something about this man, his quiet desperation, the tension in his jaw, the sadness in his eyes, made her say, Sure, just for a minute. She slid into the booth across from him, folding her hands in her lap. He studied her. Do you always go this far for your customers? Only the ones who look like they've forgotten how to breathe. He laughed softly. Fair. What kind of impossible problems are you dealing with? He glanced down at his half-eaten sandwich. Trying to build a sustainable future, make space travel accessible, solve hunger and climate issues. Small stuff. Maya blinked. Well, my daughter would love to hear about the space part. She's doing a project on rockets. His eyes lit up, really lit up, for the first time. How old is she? 8. She's been through a lot. But she never stops being curious. Space amazes her. The man set his sandwich down. That must be hard, being a parent like that. Maya swallowed hard. It is, but she's worth every sleepless night. Before either of them could say more, her name echoed from across the diner. My office, now. She turned. Mr. Phillips stood in his glass box of an office, face red, tablet clutched like a weapon. She stood, heart pounding. I'm sorry, she said to the man. Excuse me. He nodded, a look of concern crossing his face. As Maya walked to the back, she glanced once more at the man. He was typing something into his phone, the empty plate in front of him holding only a smear of honey butter and a banana peel. He didn't know it yet, but that grilled cheese, her mother's grilled cheese, was about to start a storm no one could have predicted. Maya barely had time to brace herself before Mr. Phillips slammed the office door behind her with a loud, final click. The air inside the glass-walled room felt thick, hot with judgment, cold with authority. Mr. Phillips stood with arms crossed, face flushed and stern, his eyes boring into her as though she'd committed a crime. Would you care to explain what exactly you were doing out there? He demanded, brandishing his tablet like a prosecutor holding up evidence. Maya straightened. I was serving a customer, sir. I made sure. Oh? Serving him? Is that what you call sitting down and chit-chatting like you're in some coffeehouse therapy session? His voice rose. You kept the kitchen open past closing, made an unauthorized custom order, and delayed cleanup? All for what? Some scruffy guy in a t-shirt who looked like he wandered in off the street? She swallowed hard. I made sure all my other tables were handled. I helped clean. And that customer, he looked like he needed someone to treat him like a human being. This is a high-end establishment, Maya, Phillips snapped. Not a shelter, not a church, and definitely not a stage for your bleeding heart routine. Maya felt her cheeks burn, but she refused to look away. With respect, sir. That man looked like he hadn't eaten in a day. All I did was offer him a sandwich. And created a disruption, Phillips interrupted, slamming his tablet on the desk. 3 complaints came in tonight. 3. Guests said their service was delayed, that you were distracted, inattentive. That is unacceptable. This isn't the first time, Maya. You keep stepping outside your role. I was trying to help, she whispered, voice cracking. Well, let me help you understand something, Phillips hissed, reaching into his drawer. You're fired. The word didn't sink in immediately. For a moment, it just floated in the space between them, meaningless and surreal. Then it hit her like a gut punch. No, she gasped. Please. My daughter. Her surgery. I need this job. You should have thought of that before going rogue, he said coldly, sliding a termination form across the desk. Clean out your locker. You'll get your last check in the mail. Maya's hands trembled as she reached for the paper but didn't sign it. She was too stunned to move, too heartbroken to fight. Her daughter's face, Zoe's wide, trusting eyes, flashed before her. She left the office in a fog, her ears ringing. She didn't notice the lingering guests, didn't see the empty booth where the mysterious man had once sat. Only when Trevor snickered as she passed did reality snap back into focus. Guess kindness doesn't pay, huh? He muttered under his breath. She changed out of her uniform in the locker room, hands fumbling with buttons. Her breath hitched when she opened her locker and saw the crayon drawing Zoe had made. 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a rainbow. The paper fluttered to the ground, as if echoing her collapse. Outside, the rain had started, hard, cold, unforgiving. Of course, Maya didn't even have an umbrella. She had lent it to an elderly customer the day before without a second thought. Now, soaked to the skin and without a job, she began the long walk home. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Once, twice, then again. She ignored it. Probably another notice from the hospital billing department. She couldn't face it tonight. Her thoughts spiraled. How would she pay rent? How would she afford Zoe's next round of medication? How could she tell her daughter that the very thing she'd always taught her, to be kind, had led to their downfall? By the time she reached her building, her clothes clung to her like a second skin. Her hair was dripping, her shoes squelching with each step as she climbed the 5 flights of stairs. The elevator had been out for weeks. Mrs. Martinez, her elderly neighbor, was dozing in the armchair in Maya's apartment, knitting needles in her lap. She startled awake at the sound of the door. "Mija, you're home early and soaking wet. What happened?" Maya stood frozen for a second too long. Then, finally, her voice cracked as she whispered, "I lost my job." "Dios mío," Mrs. Martinez murmured, rising to embrace her. "Why, child?" But before Maya could explain, a soft voice called from the bedroom. "Mommy? Is that you?" Wiping her eyes quickly, Maya forced a smile. "Just a minute, baby. Let me change." Mrs. Martinez nodded gently. "I'll stay with her tomorrow. You rest. God never closes a door without opening a window." Maya managed a weak "thank you" before stepping into her room and closing the door behind her. Inside Zoe's room, the air smelled faintly of crayons and lavender lotion. Zoe lay in bed, surrounded by space books. Her eyes lit up. "Can we do the rocket project now?" Maya choked on her answer, forcing the weight of the day into the smallest possible words. "Soon, sweetheart. Mommy just needs a minute." But what Maya didn't know, what she couldn't yet imagine, was that the universe had already taken notice of that sandwich, that kindness, that simple gesture, and by morning, her world would be turned completely upside down. Maya Johnson awoke to the unfamiliar sound of silence. The usual morning chaos, the garbage truck beeping outside, the thrum of traffic, the ding of her phone as bills and reminders rolled in, was strangely absent. She blinked, disoriented, still curled up on the couch beneath Zoe's favorite blanket, her dead phone clutched loosely in her hand. It was only when she plugged it in and the screen lit up with dozens of notifications, calls, texts, missed emails, that she felt her stomach twist. Something had happened. She opened one message from Sarah, her old coworker. "Maya, you're not going to believe this. You're everywhere. Like, everywhere." The next was a video link. Shaking, Maya clicked it. It was grainy footage from the Silicon Diner's security cameras, showing her late-night exchange with the exhausted man in the black t-shirt, Elon Musk. Captions had been added, and a somber piano track played beneath the footage. Waitress shows kindness to stranger, unaware he's one of the richest men alive. Millions of views, tens of thousands of shares, comments flooded the screen. "This woman deserves the world." I cried watching this. We need more Mayas in the world. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She'd served Elon Musk, and someone had leaked the footage. But who? And why? Suddenly everything made sense. Mr. Phillips' fury, the accusations about complaints. It wasn't about customer service. It was about being caught on camera. The diner's brand tied to an emotional moment they couldn't control. She opened her front door to get air and froze. Outside, a news van idled at the curb. Reporters milled around with cameras, and someone spotted her in the doorway. "That's her, Maya Johnson." Before she could shut the door, microphones were shoved toward her, voices overlapping. "Ms. Johnson, how does it feel to be America's newest inspiration? Did you know it was Elon Musk? Are the rumors true? Has he contacted you?" Maya slammed the door shut, her heart thundering. She hadn't asked for any of this. All she wanted was to keep her daughter safe, healthy. Now strangers were camped outside her home. Another knock. Not media this time. It was Mr. Rodriguez, her building manager, shifting uncomfortably as he held a thick packet of papers. "Ms. Johnson," he said awkwardly, "we've had some complaints. Tenants can't get into the building without reporters following them. It's causing issues." She stared at him, stunned. "I haven't done anything wrong." "I know, but there's pressure from the owners. I'm sorry. You have until the end of the week." An eviction notice. It felt like the universe was mocking her. One act of compassion, one sandwich, and now she was jobless, hunted by media, and about to lose her home. "Mommy!" Zoe's small voice came from the hallway. "Why are those people outside?" Maya blinked back tears. "Don't worry, baby. Everything's okay." She helped Zoe settle back in bed, then went to the kitchen and opened her laptop, praying for clarity. But the chaos followed her there, too. Her inbox was on fire. Heartwarming moment melts hearts across America. Waitress, who served Elon Musk, offered modeling deal. Tech companies compete to hire the grilled cheese angel. Offers were pouring in, from restaurants, cooking shows, talk shows, sponsorships, brand deals, a strange, surreal circus of attention and opportunity. Yet all Maya could see was the $75,000 surgery bill on her fridge. She clicked on an email from Mr. Phillips, the very man who'd fired her. "Due to recent publicity, we are open to rehiring you, effective immediately." Maya didn't even hesitate. She deleted it. He hadn't stood by her when it mattered. Why should she return now, like some PR man? As the day wore on, the pressure didn't let up. Her phone buzzed again. A new message from an unfamiliar sender, subject line: "The grilled cheese was just the beginning. Keep watching your mailbox." No name, no details, just mystery. Was this some prank? Or was someone, maybe Elon himself, trying to communicate directly? The question swirled in her head as she pulled Zoe's blanket tighter around herself that night. Offers and chaos might be flooding in, but Maya didn't want fame. She didn't want attention. She wanted her life back. She wanted her daughter healthy and smiling. The next morning, she opened her mailbox and gasped. Inside were half a dozen thick, gold-lettered envelopes. Each bore the crest of a major tech company: Tesla, SpaceX, Blue Origin, Starlink. Each contained a job offer. Each one promised a salary that would more than cover Zoe's surgery. Maya's hands trembled as she clutched the envelopes to her chest. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just a viral moment anymore. This was a test, and she had no idea who was pulling the strings, or why, but she was about to find out. Maya Johnson had barely set the envelopes down on her worn kitchen table when her phone rang again. This time, it was a local number. She hesitated. Another reporter? Another stranger offering her a life-changing opportunity? But something about the number felt familiar. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Maya Johnson," a calm, respectful voice replied. "This is David Chen. I'm the owner of the Starlight Cafe on East Riverside. I know you've been getting a lot of attention lately, but would you be willing to meet me today, in person? I have a genuine offer I'd like to discuss." Maya blinked. She remembered the Starlight Cafe. It was one of the few remaining family-owned diners in Austin, a place her mother had taken her once as a child, with red vinyl booths and jukeboxes that still played old soul records. Something about the man's tone felt different. He wasn't selling her a dream or pitching a contract. He sounded like he just wanted a conversation. "I can meet after I drop my daughter at school," she said. "Around 10? "Perfect," he said. "Thank you, Maya. Truly." After breakfast and meds, Maya hugged Zoe extra tight at the school gates. "I'll pick you up later, okay?" Zoe smiled sleepily. "Maybe you'll find a job today." Maya's heart clenched. "Maybe," she whispered. The Starlight Cafe was just as she remembered, cozy, inviting, with the comforting aroma of fresh coffee and buttered toast. Mr. Chen was already seated in a corner booth, a pot of tea waiting between two mismatched ceramic mugs. "Thank you for coming," he said warmly. "I won't waste your time." Over tea, Mr. Chen spoke quietly. "I saw the video. But what impressed me more was how you handled yourself in the aftermath. Grace under fire. Genuine humility. Maya, I'm offering you the position of general manager here at Starlight. Full benefits. A salary that includes a health plan to cover your daughter's surgery." Maya stared at him, speechless. "Health coverage?" she asked, her voice cracking. "My son had the same surgery Zoe needs," Mr. Chen said softly. 10 years ago. I remember the sleepless nights, the worry. I can't give you the world, Maya, but I can give you security and kindness." She blinked, tears threatening. Then the cafe door swung open. A woman in a sleek black suit, flanked by 2 assistants, marched straight toward their table. "Maya Johnson, I'm Sandra Torres from SpaceX," she announced, barely glancing at Mr. Chen. "We need to speak immediately." Before Maya could answer, the bell chimed again. Another man stepped in, this one wearing a Tesla Polo, tablet in hand. "Miss Johnson, sorry to interrupt. Elon Musk has authorized us to extend a revised offer." Then another, and another. Within 10 minutes, the quiet cafe had transformed into a corporate battleground. Representatives from every major tech firm, Tesla, Blue Origin, Starlink, even smaller startups like sharks in silk ties and pencil skirts. "We'll double that offer. Relocation package. California. Private schooling for your daughter. Stock options. Executive suite. $300 K-base salary, signing bonus, name your number." Maya could hardly breathe. She looked around, overwhelmed. Her eyes locked with Mr. Chen, who sat silently, hands folded around his teacup. He wasn't pressuring her. He wasn't competing. He was simply waiting. And then her phone buzzed again. An email. This time from the same scrambled address as before. No subject line, just a message. "Not all opportunities are what they seem. Choose wisely." It was signed simply. Her heart skipped. And just then a courier entered the cafe, heading straight for her table. He handed her a sealed envelope. No return address. Only 2 words on the front. "Trust yourself." Maya's fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No contract, no signature, just a handwritten note. "The grilled cheese was never about the sandwich. It was about your heart. You passed the first test. The real test begins now." Maya looked up. The room spun. All these offers, the sudden spotlight, the mysterious emails. This wasn't just a reaction to a viral video. Someone, Elon, was orchestrating something bigger, testing her. But before she could fully process it, her phone rang again. This time, it was Mrs. Martinez. "Mia, it's Zoe. Come quickly. She collapsed at school." Maya didn't hear the corporate voices anymore. The emails, the job offers, the mystery, it all vanished in a rush of fear and adrenaline. She grabbed her purse and sprinted out of the cafe, ignoring the shouts behind her. Because in that moment, only one thing mattered. Her daughter's life was on the line. The sirens echoed in Maya Johnson's ears as she clutched her daughter's pale hand in the back of the speeding ambulance. Zoe lay still, her lips tinged blue, a sheen of sweat across her forehead. Maya had faced 1,000 fears since her daughter's diagnosis, but none as visceral, as suffocating as this moment. Not even the blinding lights of media vans or the endless corporate offers could touch this kind of terror. All that mattered now was the faint rise and fall of Zoe's chest. At the hospital, everything blurred. Nurses rushed, monitors beeped, and Dr. Lewis met her with tired eyes and grim resolve. "She's stable for now," he said gently, leading Maya into a dim waiting room. "But we can't delay the surgery any longer. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning." "But I don't," Maya started, her voice trembling. I haven't secured the money yet. Dr. Lewis hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. I know, but this isn't optional anymore. If we don't operate, her condition will worsen rapidly. I'm sorry. Maya nodded, numb. After making sure Zoe was resting under sedation, Maya wandered the hall, lost in a fog of exhaustion and panic. Her purse felt heavy with business cards, offers, and promises, but none of them seemed real in the sterile white glow of the hospital. When she returned to the waiting room, she found something unexpected. Mr. Chen. The Starlight Cafe owner sat quietly, a teddy bear in his lap and 2 cups of hot tea on the table beside him. I thought you might need a friend, he said with a gentle smile, and something warm to hold on to. Maya's throat tightened. You came all the way here? You're not alone in this, Maya, not anymore. They sat in silence for a while. It was the first moment of stillness she'd had in days. But it didn't last long. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed again. New email. Final test begins now. Car waiting outside. Your daughter will be safe. E. Maya's heart skipped. She rushed to Zoe's room. Her daughter lay peacefully, monitored by machines, watched over by a kind night nurse. Maya kissed her forehead, whispered a promise. I'll be right back, baby, and walked out of the hospital. A black Tesla sat outside, sleek and waiting. Its lights blinked once as she approached. The passenger door opened automatically. Maya hesitated, then slid inside. The screen on the dashboard flickered to life. Sometimes the biggest problems require the simplest solutions. Take the ride. The car moved smoothly, silently through Austin's sleeping streets. Maya stared out the window, heart pounding. Then another message appeared. You've been part of an experiment, Maya. Not just about kindness, but about character. In a world obsessed with viral fame, who are you when no one is watching? She stared at the screen, then slowly typed, I'm someone who helps when I can, because kindness shouldn't be conditional. Even when it cost you everything, the screen replied. Yes, she typed, because kindness isn't a transaction, it's a responsibility. The Tesla turned down a familiar road. Maya's breath caught. The Silicon Diner. The place where all this began. But it wasn't the same. The lights inside were on, but something had changed. The decor was warmer, the sterile trendiness replaced with cozy lighting and welcoming booths. Over the counter, a new sign read, Johnson's Family Diner, where kindness is always on the menu. Maya stepped inside slowly, unsure if she was dreaming. Then she saw them. Elon Musk, Mr. Chen, several other faces she vaguely recognized from tech articles and business magazines. They all stood as she entered. Welcome home, Maya, Elon said, rising from the booth. She blinked at him, stunned. What? What is this? Elon smiled, gesturing for her to sit. The truth, and your final test. Maya slowly slid into the booth. Her hands trembled. I don't understand. For months, Elon said. We've been running a quiet project. A search, really. Not for the most qualified, not for the most connected, but for someone real. Someone whose kindness could withstand chaos, temptation, and pressure. Mr. Chen added, We've watched how you handled the media storm, the offers, the threats. You never sold out. You kept showing up for your daughter, for your values. Maya sat frozen as Elon pushed a folder toward her. Inside is a position, Chief Operating Officer of a new nationwide initiative, the Kitchen Table Project. A network of community diners providing affordable meals, job training, and medical aid. We want you to lead it. Her hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were papers, contracts, bank transfers, a page marked, Medical expenses for Zoe Johnson, paid in full. Maya's breath caught. She stared at Elon. I don't know what to say. He nodded, his tone gentle. You already said everything the night you gave a tired stranger a grilled cheese sandwich. You reminded me why I started all of this in the first place. A single tear rolled down Maya's cheek. Her phone buzzed one last time. Subject: "You passed, we begin at dawn." Maya Johnson stood under the soft glow of the remodeled Silicon Diner, now Johnson's Family Diner, as the first rays of sunlight poured in through the windows. But for the first time in days, it wasn't the sun that warmed her. It was something deeper, something long buried beneath exhaustion and fear. Purpose. As Elon Musk finished explaining the kitchen table project, Maya wasn't thinking about herself anymore. She was thinking about everyone like her. Single mothers, exhausted workers, families buried under medical bills, people who showed up day after day with no cameras, no viral spotlight, just heart. "So you're saying," Maya asked slowly, voice husky with emotion, "this whole time I was being watched?" Mr. Chen gave a soft chuckle. "Not watched, witnessed. There's a difference. We weren't looking for perfection, Maya. We were looking for authenticity." Elon leaned forward, resting his hands on the table between them. "You had every reason to choose the quick way out. Money, fame, shortcuts. But you didn't. That's why we want you to be the face of this movement." He slid one last paper across the table. A launch schedule. Dozens of diners slated to open across the country, each with its own community center, job training program, and a fund dedicated to families in medical crisis, modeled after Maya's own experience with Zoe. Maya stared at the paper, then looked up, voice trembling. This can help so many people." Elon nodded. "It will, but only with your leadership." Maya didn't respond right away. She stood, walked over to the kitchen, and placed her hand on the framed recipe card mounted above the grill. Her mother's grilled cheese, the same sandwich that started it all. She remembered her mom's words, "Kindness is a seed, baby. You never know how far its roots will reach." Then she turned to face them, her spine straight, her eyes clear. "Then let's get to work." The next few hours were a whirlwind. Elon made a quiet exit. True to his promise, he didn't want the spotlight. This wasn't about him, it was about people like Maya. Mr. Chen stayed behind to walk her through the operational details, vendor lists, hiring plans, and press coordination. But something bigger was already in motion. By midday, the diner's transformation was unveiled to the public. Outside, reporters and camera crews who had days ago hounded her for gossip now stood respectfully behind velvet ropes, hushed, reverent. They weren't just witnessing a PR stunt, they were witnessing a resurrection, a phoenix rising from the ashes of viral fame. Maya stepped onto a makeshift stage in front of the new sign and took a deep breath. She wore no makeup, no flashy clothes, just her mother's old apron and a firm, radiant resolve in her eyes. "Good morning," she began, voice steady. "Most of you know me as the woman from the grilled cheese video. But before that, I was just a mom, a waitress, a person trying to hold it all together. I never asked for any of this, but I'm here now, and I'm not going back to hiding behind a counter. I'm standing here for every parent who's worked 2 jobs and still came up short, for every worker who gave kindness and got fired for it, for every child lying in a hospital bed wondering if help is coming." She paused, scanning the crowd. And help was coming. A murmur swept through the audience. Maya lifted the folder she'd received earlier that morning. "This is the Kitchen Table Project, a network of diners across the country, run not by corporations but by communities. We'll serve food, yes, but more than that, we'll serve hope. Medical aid, job training, dignity. All of it starts here." Behind her, the diner doors opened. Inside, a team of newly hired staff, former line cooks, out-of-work waitresses, even a few teens from the local youth shelter, stood ready, aprons tied, smiles hopeful. "And this isn't just my dream," Maya continued, her voice rising. "It's yours. This belongs to every person who's ever felt invisible. Starting today, no one eats alone." The crowd erupted in applause, not the polite, manufactured kind, but something raw, something real. Maya stepped down from the podium just as her phone buzzed. "Dr. Lewis, surgery's a go. Zoe's prepped. She's asking for you." Her knees went weak with relief. Mr. Chen stepped beside her, concern in his eyes. "Go, we've got this." She hugged him. "Thank you for believing in me." "You believed first," he replied. As Maya rushed to the hospital, her heart was pounding, not with fear, but with hope. The kind that turns fear into fuel. She didn't just have a job now. She had a mission. And while her daughter lay in a sterile operating room with doctors preparing for the most important moment of her young life, Maya Johnson knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow was no longer something to dread. It was a chance to build a world where no one has to fight alone again. The hum of machines filled the quiet hospital room as Maya Johnson sat beside Zoe, her small hand resting gently in hers. The little girl was still groggy from anesthesia, her breathing slow but steady. The surgery was a success. Dr. Lewis had emerged hours earlier with a relieved smile and a simple statement that Maya would replay in her mind forever. "She's going to be okay." But Maya didn't cry then. She waited until she was alone, watching her daughter sleep, knowing that for the first time in a long while, the future wasn't a shadow, it was light. Outside the room, a nurse handed Maya a sleek white envelope. No return address, just her name written in gold script. She opened it with trembling hands. "Congratulations, Maya. You passed every test. Not with words, but with choices. Meet us at the diner, midnight. One last thing to show you." Her heart skipped. Another test? After all of this? Zoe stirred, her voice hoarse. "Mommy?" Maya leaned in, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. "You're okay, baby. Everything's okay now." Zoe's lips curved into a tired smile. "Did you help the man with the space stuff?" Maya laughed softly, tears forming. "Yeah, I guess I did." "Then maybe I can go to space one day," Zoe whispered before slipping back into sleep. Midnight came quickly. Maya left Zoe in trusted care, her footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor as she made her way to the hospital parking lot. A black Tesla waited, its headlights blinking once, like before. She climbed in, heart pounding with anticipation. The tablet inside lit up again. Final gift. The car glided through Austin's empty streets, weaving past silent skyscrapers and glowing billboards. It turned onto a road Maya didn't recognize, then came to a stop in front of a modest yet striking building. The sign above the glass doors read, "The Johnson Center for Kindness and Innovation." Maya stepped out slowly, eyes wide. Inside, the lights flicked on automatically, revealing a stunning space. Part culinary training center, part wellness clinic, part community hub. Photos lined the walls of diners in progress, families reunited, and yes, Maya herself serving that grilled cheese, frozen in the moment that changed everything. Standing at the center of the lobby was Elon Musk. But this time, he wasn't in a simple black t-shirt. He wore a tailored suit and a soft, genuine smile. "Welcome home," he said. Maya swallowed hard. "What is this?" He motioned her forward. "It's your legacy, Maya. The kitchen table project was never meant to stop at diners. This is phase 2. Your idea, your leadership, your voice." He handed her a folder. Inside were architectural blueprints, budgets, and expansion plans. Dozens of cities, hundreds of lives. "You proved something that no algorithm ever could," Elon continued. "That human kindness, real, inconvenient, sacrificial kindness, still matters in this world. We want this center to be the heart of the movement, a place where people come to learn, to heal, to lead." Maya stared at the plans, the weight of them crashing into her all at once. She looked up, stunned. "Why me? I'm not a CEO, I'm just—" "You're not just anything," Elon interrupted gently. "You're exactly what this world needs. Someone who sees people. Someone who acts without needing recognition. Someone who chooses what's right, even when it costs everything." He pulled out a small box and handed it to her. Inside was a brass nameplate. Maya Johnson, founder and director. Her knees almost buckled. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep going, he said. That you'll lead the... Maya closed the box and nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Yes. 100 times, yes. The next morning, Zoe awoke to find her mother sitting beside her, glowing in a way she'd never seen before. Did something happen? Zoe asked, blinking. Maya smiled, brushing her hand over her daughter's forehead. Everything happened, she whispered. And everything's going to be different now. Later that week, when Maya walked into the diner for her first official press event, she didn't come alone. Zoe walked proudly by her side, wearing a SpaceX t-shirt and a bright pink backpack, her energy restored. News cameras clicked, reporters shouted questions. But Maya didn't flinch. She stood at the podium, her daughter holding her hand. I started this journey just trying to save one life, she told the crowd. But along the way, I realized something. Sometimes the smallest act, a grilled cheese sandwich made with love, can ignite a movement. This isn't just about food or fame, it's about seeing people, lifting each other up, and today, we're just getting started. As the crowd applauded, Zoe leaned in and whispered, Mommy, do you think I can really go to space one day? Maya bent down and kissed her forehead. You already have, she said with a wink, because everything from here on out is a brand new world. In a world that often moves too fast to notice kindness, Maya Johnson's story reminds us that one small act of compassion can ripple across countless lives. Her journey from exhausted waitress to the heart of a nationwide movement shows that integrity, empathy, and staying true to your values matter more than fame or fortune. In today's modern hustle, it's easy to feel invisible. But stories like Maya's prove that someone is always watching, and doing the right thing still counts. Whether you're fighting for your child, helping a stranger, or just trying to get through the day, never underestimate the power of a simple gesture. If this inspiring story moved you, help us keep sharing stories that uplift and unite. Like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a little hope today, because sometimes the smallest moments make the biggest impact.